Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to roll call. Ms. Palacios.
Governing Board President, Dr. John Sparks.
Here.
Governing Board Clerk, Sherry Lowe.
Here.
Governing Board Member, Denise Reese.
Here.
Governing Board Member, Raul Rodriguez.
Here.
Governing Board Member, Anthony Bruno. District Administration Superintendent, Dr. Manuel Valenzuela. Assistant Superintendent, Scott Downs. Assistant Superintendent, Brett Bonner.
Here.
Chief Financial Officer, Lisette Huey is not present.
I think I missed my turn to mention while we were dealing with technical challenges here that I am, for the record, I am present here. Ms. Palacios, thank you. I apologize.
Thank you very much. I think it's unfair when they spring new technology on us right at the start of a meeting. But we'll get through it. We'll go ahead and move on to approval of the agenda. Dr. Mel.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board, at this time I would recommend approval of the agenda as it was revised.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. We have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to approval of the minutes. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board, you have in your packet draft copies of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the board back on May the 31st, 2023, and also in reference to the board study session that took place on June 3rd. And after your review and consideration, I do recommend approval at this time.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is superintendent reports. Dr. Valenzuela.
Believe it or not, Dr. Sparks, I don't have anything not
Dr.
already
Sparks,
tied to the agenda to
I'm
report.
sorry, we do need to vote on the approval.
Did I skip that? I apologize.
Yeah.
Thank you. Back to approval of the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you, Ms. Reese, for keeping me on task.
Got it.
All right, we'll go ahead. Now we'll go on and move on to the superintendent's report, although it looks like we may or may not have a superintendent's report this fine summer session.
Brett has given me a picture. But you want to just explain this? I just see I know you're trying to feed me some meaningful, relevant information.
Or it could be. I just want to point out that in the audience today, we do have Miss Angelique Acedo, who will be a senior at Sahuarita High School, and she was our student representative for the hiring committee for the soon-to-be, hopefully, approved SHS principal today. So I just want to recognize Angelique and her contributions, and she was dynamic, outstanding, and brought a lot to the table. So thank you, Angelique.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. And thank you for representing your fellow students.
I like this very high-tech method of communication from Mr. Bonner. That's right. As we're fumbling with technology here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brett.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's nice to know it's alive and still working.
So no more information from the superintendent's report. So we'll move on to board reports.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the board reports. Ms. Lowell.
No report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Reese.
I just would like to congratulate the high school students who are participating in summer school. We've got one semester down, start second semester tomorrow. And then also for the students that are participating in the K8 enrichment program. You're about halfway done through that program for the summer. So congratulations and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Sorry, 1 second. I just want to make sure. I thought I missed something really good. Sorry. Mr. Bruno.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to everybody that district lost a student this last week. Valerie Lopez-Cimental. It was a very tragic loss to the as a whole. And I would like us just to take a moment of silence on her behalf and for her family and her memory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruno. Mr. Rodriguez.
On Friday, I was went to the triple play to help support Sahuarita High School football fundraiser. Great turnout, had some great prizes, and I'd just like to say it's a really fun way to support our high school football team. And some cornhole. Had a good time.
Thank you very much. And I don't have anything to add to the governing board reports today, so thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. Any roll call this evening, Ms. Lowell? So we'll move on to item number 7, new business, Curriculum Associates Agreement Renewal. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board. As you know, our district has worked with intentionality and resolve over the years under the guidance of Mr. Bonner to further develop and evolve our instructional programs. A part of that, of course, are the resources and the adopted curriculums which we have. This evening, I bring for your consideration a new contract of the same curriculum that we've been using since it was adopted in 2018, and that is the renewal of an agreement with Curriculum Associates. Curriculum Associates provides a deep and broad array of programs, specifically at the K-8 level in mathematics and also in English language arts. Just a few comments. Mr. Bonner has consulted the faculty and faculty representatives and discussed, the alignment of the program, the strengths of the program, any refinements in the program. And they've made a strong determination that this is a valuable program that we'd like to continue to use under a new contract with the same curriculum. I wanted to stress the fact that Curriculum Associates is the publisher and vendor of this program, and that we've established a fairly strong legal relationship over the years where we've supported some of their program development efforts. They've used us as kind of a study site, a beta site, if you will, to evaluate the effectiveness of the programs. They've also worked specifically with Mr. Bonner in the establishment of a multi-year deal, which really is favorable because the price tag of this adoption, which ranges from 3 to 5 years, is about $1.6 million, and they've allowed us to chunk it over the term so that we don't have to come up with the whole thing at once. It's spread out over the 3 to 5 year respective time period. So with that, I do recommend approval of this new contract with Curriculum Associates.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have?
I move to approve the new contract with Associates, and the governing board find that Curriculum Associates is both publisher and vendor of the curriculum materials being purchased, that Curriculum Associates is the only source for the particular curriculum materials being acquired, and that the materials being purchased are updated versions of materials used in district schools since 2018, that the contract price is fair and reasonable, and that the contract qualifies as a sole source procurement under the Arizona Procurement Code.
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion second. Any further discussion?
Just curious, so we're gonna, we're not adding anything new, correct? This is the same curriculum that they've already had?
It's the same curriculum, however, it is the new edition or version, and is a combination of both the older version and new version through the current publisher that we've been using since 2018.
Any further discussion? And I think I'll add, just to clarify why, the kind of the fairly long-winded motion, and thank you, Denise, for doing that. It's important to note that same curriculum, same process, but when we reapprove it, we have to basically say they're the only people that make their product, and therefore they are the sole source provider of their product. This kind of goes back to last meeting's sole source provider conversation. We can't hire another company to update another company's information, but we still have to do that. Is that a good way to
Yes,
put that?
sir. Thank you for that summary, Dr. Sparks.
And if I may, Dr. Sparks,
Yes.
it also embeds the iReady diagnostics that we've been using historically over the last 5 years for both reading and mathematics. So it's bundled together with professional development, iReady diagnostics for grades K through 8th grade, which align to what we have to support reporting to the state for Move On when reading. In addition to that, all of our K through 8th grade teachers use it for reteach and enrich, identifying areas of refinement or targeting interventions. And of course, the curriculum is online, and then the students receive the consumable books each year over the contract term. Math is 5-year renewal, and reading is 3-year renewal. And it's the same like we did the first initiation of the contract.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the clarification. I don't think people realize how complex, curriculum systems are. Many of us grew up in an era where you got a book, and sometimes that book sat under that chair in that class for many, many years. That doesn't exist as a function anymore.
And the math and the English language arts curriculum is aligned to the Arizona academic standards for both mathematics and English language arts, which we're abide to follow and adhere to. In addition to that, our classroom teachers vetted through the curriculum renewal. They're part of that process, and we have now met all the conditions to meet what we call the science of reading, which embeds the big 5 of reading. This curriculum does cover the big 5, which is vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, phonics, and phonemic awareness. So we have covered all the aspects for mathematics and the science of reading.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is always a big deal when we do this, but the bond resolution to call for an election. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks and members of the board. We've been talking about this topic in conversation for actually several months. This is not something that came without a lot of time, a lot of dialogue, a lot of engagement with our community and with our staff. But it really presents, we believe, a really unique and special opportunity to make a significant transformational investment and impact on our facilities and our programs through this program. I'd like to make note of the fact that on the call we have a couple of guests. We have from our investment banking advisor partners at Stifel. We have Randy Stein and Brian Lundberg, in case there are any questions. And we also have Mr. Jim Giel, who's our bond attorney from Gus Rosenfeld. So I'll go ahead and go through this and make a recommendation at that point. So I guess I'd start with the what and then why. I know nowadays in conventional conversation you always say you start with the why, but I want to talk about what we're here to discuss. And that is a resolution which is in your packet and before you on the agenda, calling for a $50 million bond program measure on the ballot for the November 7th, 2023 election cycle. And I think one of the things we focus on that is unique about this opportunity is that we have an opportunity to make this investment without an anticipated increase to our current school tax rate. And a reasonable person might say, how do you do that? When you're adding more debt. And I think it's been a very intentional and methodical process that, again, has been ongoing and has been planned for some time. I'd like to give sincere appreciation to our CFO, Lizette Huey, who I know is watching. Lizette's still on medical leave, and we're excited that we anticipate her return back to the office in the very near future. But she was very intentional about working to assertively pay down previous debt to the greatest extent possible and affordable, and also seized an opportunity. We remember, you wouldn't believe it right now, but we remember not that long ago when interest rates were low to an unprecedented level. And we seized that opportunity, and we refinanced, or as they say, refunded at a very low rate. I think it was less than 2%. It was about $20 million of previous debt, saved about $2 million. Also, our community, if you just visually look around, it's growing. It's on a growth trajectory commercially and residentially. And that, of course, bodes favorably for the opportunity to expand this type of financing, because to generate the same amount of revenue, each entity theoretically has to put in less money as we grow, right? Building a bigger pie, everybody has a smaller slice to generate the same amount. So what it did, it created greater bond capacity, and it also gave us greater budget capacity. So that's how we're able to invest $50 million and feel confident, barring conditions that are well beyond our control. But every good faith projection and consultation suggests that we can do this without increasing the tax rate. Go on to the next one, please, Amber. Thank you. Now we'll get to the why. As we know, we have strategic directions, and the very first one is clean, safe, effective, and modern physical plants and resources. And like we know in our own homes and just kind of in general, you have to be forward-looking, and to the extent that you can afford, you have to be reinvesting in your home to keep it updated, functional, safe, and effective. And I noted just a couple anecdotal they're anecdotes, but they're facts. The average school building in our district is about 30 years old, and there's one that is about 55 years old. That's SPS, if inquiring minds would like to know. We're also a growing community, and so we have an opportunity to expand in unique locations and for unique programmatic needs. We also know, we were talking about we were kind of kidding about the different modes of communication, from paper and pencil and slates to, the pretty high-tech equipment that we use just to operate these meetings. And the fact that the infrastructure, the technology, if you will, and technology, not just computers, but the associated infrastructure that has changed. I think about how much it's changed over the last 5, 10, 15, not to mention 20 years. So we've got to keep ahead of that and do it in a way that's proactive, forward-thinking, to the extent that we can afford, so that we can deliver the mission, which is the same, but the context is always changing and dynamic. Okay, next page, please, Amber. So how have we gone about this? And I want to say that we have invested a significant amount of time to give a voice and an opportunity for feedback from all of our different schools, all of our different stakeholders, and that was done through a variety of methods. One is we did have community conversation right here in this room to share about the concept, to invite people to give their ideas, our parents, our staff, our students. They know the schools where they spend a significant amount of time. They know what the needs are. They know what investment would yield the biggest return in terms of the mission. We have on the website even now an opportunity for people to provide these ideas and provide this input. Myself and our cabinet team went to every single school in the district, and we talked about these issues, these challenges, and invited their support and their input. We talked with our cross-sector partnership called Sahuarita Wins. We've gotten over 750 suggestions, and there's probably more. That was what I counted at the time that I was assembling these slides. And we were able to identify some emerging themes through this inductive process of sorting through all this data, and we've categorized it into 5 or 6 kind of general categories. Amber, go ahead and Next page, please. Um, so what kept coming up, whether you were talking about elementary schools or high schools or middle schools or the different departments, is what we talked about previously, technology. And that's continuing to evolve our infrastructure. We heard a lot about interactive whiteboard technology, which is kind of the current standard of presentation equipment, continuing to enhance our Wi-Fi capabilities, at least as much as we can control. So technology was the theme. Another one was facility renovations, and that's kind of what a lot of us think about when you think of bond. It's the chance to do big repairs, the stuff that you can't do with the annual investment of normal capital and what we've been allocated. But we heard a lot about paint, or as they call it, weatherization of the facilities. Talked about paving parking areas that are in need of repaving. We heard about lighting. We heard about PA systems. We still have public address systems which are vital for communication and also for security, that I learned are still operating with analog modality. And that has to change. I believe Mr. Villa has shared that the FCC and their oversight, they now require standards that raise that bar. I think they have to be digitized or in some other format. And we're always focused on ventilation, physical comfort. So those are the kind of renovations that emerged in this data. Classroom specific improvements like flooring, additional space. Again, we talked about technology. A lot of these overlap. Additional equipment, updated lighting, outdoor facilities. This came up a lot. Not just in our high schools. We heard about making the courtyards. We have several courtyards that have been started but that need refinement and that they need additional enhancements. It might be shade structures. It might be additional turf of the grass. Playground spaces, playground structures. Of course, we heard, technology has evolved. Back in 2010, we were one of the first high schools in the region to implement fully synthetic surfaces on our football stadiums, and marching facilities, and our tracks. Of course, the thing with those is that they wear out and they're expensive. Now they have value. They don't consume water, So those things came up. We now, of course, have 2 high schools. We heard about lighting and the ability to make our facilities even of greater value by adding lighting to our facilities. So these are the kind of investments that came up from our schools. Of course, always on our radar is the comprehensive emphasis on security. And we learned that our cameras, although they still to a significant degree do function, but they are about 15 years old. And we know when we think about in technology years, that's like probably 150 years old with how fast it changes. We heard about some of the newer technology detection devices, sensors. We're even looking at technology. Scott's been researching ballistic resistant glass targeted strategically as part of our plan with the police department and with law enforcement. We also heard about the need to expand classroom and facilities, and very targeted, in very unique spaces. We heard, for example, from the preschool, from the ECC, that we have waiting lists of families that would like to put their kids in preschool, but we don't have the space. We designed that place, by the way, for 2 more classrooms to be able to come out. I think it's toward the east side of the campus to punch out and go 2 more rooms. We've been working with Pima County, which has been supporting investment in access to preschool programs. And the more we learn about neuroscience and brain development, the more we realize what an important investment that is. We have some special education areas where we need some additional space as we've grown, and in regular ed too. We are growing, and we do need more space. Also in the area of fine arts, we know that we have the same beautiful auditorium that we had in 1978. And although we certainly could not afford, probably for the whole 50 million, to build another one of these, but we can build a smaller theater that would give our programs a little bit of relief of pressure on the use of this facility and give us greater access. We heard about science labs and the need maybe to improve traffic flow and make maybe additional accommodations for individuals with some mobility issues. And then, of course, where you have schools, you're going to have desk, tables, and chairs, so furniture and equipment. So these are kind of the themes that emerged pretty clearly. It was pretty clear as we sorted through this stuff. And so now I would go to what are our next steps? Well, pending my recommendation that the board adopt the resolution calling for the election, we will continue to refine specific project categories. So in other words, we know that these are the main categories that have emerged and they're allowable within the bond scope of project. We will now go through, and of course, without going over 50 million. And the reason we picked that number is because we went to a number that we felt conservatively confident, again, barring any unforeseen thing, that we could go to that level without raising people's school tax rates. But we're going to refine how we're going to kind of distribute that. And we're going to do that with our school leaders in consultation and in consideration of all this data. We would need to craft an election pamphlet and all the documentation. That's why we have Jim and Randy and Brian and all our partners at Pima County who help us formulate all this stuff. And then we're going to continue, what we're allowed to do within the law, which is share the factual information, why it's needed and what the money is going to be going toward. Next page, please, Amber. So before I make the recommendation, I just want to close with a couple of points that I think are not only unique, but also encouraging about our vision and the board's historic support for investing in facilities and the community's historical support for local control and local investment in our schools so that they can be the best they can be. And first, I'm going to say it again, due to retirement of debt and the refunding of some old debt, in addition to growth, there is at this time in good faith no anticipated increase to our school tax rate, which is wonderful. And additionally, we've done multiple, I've been here 18 years, and we've done multiple bond projects, some before my superintendency and at least a couple in my superintendency. And most of the time, as I recall, the lion's share of the money was to build a new school because we wanted to get ahead of the normal timing cycle that has historically been the school facilities board. And so my point with this one is, this is totally investment of $50 million in upgrading and renovating and renewing our currently existing school facilities. We haven't had that opportunity. And even with the rising costs of construction, and we're all very well aware of that, it does present a significant opportunity to really invest in our schools. And the other thing that always is a priority when we try and do these kind of bonds is we want to provide something for every school, so that every school will benefit. The community as a whole will benefit from these investments. So with that, at this point, and again, after the recommendation, if you have any questions of me or any of our guests that are on the call, at this point, I would like to formally recommend to the board that you adopt the presented resolution ordering and calling for a special bond election for this November of 2023 and authorizing the corresponding actions as noted in that resolution.
Thank you very much, Dr. Valenzuela. So we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Dr. Valenzuela, do you see, there any more community conversations scheduled to talk about this, or?
Absolutely. One of the objectives that we've set, certainly over the course of the last several years, has been to increase the number of these conversations. So, of course, the first conversation about this particular topic, just like we've had ones about safety and other important issues, but the first one on this topic was to inform the public about the needs and about the opportunities so that they could give ideas. I think pending the board's authorization, we will continue to have community conversations to talk about progress, to further provide updates about the refinement of the projects, about the specific objectives that are going to emerge, and about any other questions and related issues that would be helpful for the community. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I think no one else has anything, but I think I'll add. I think it's important to note that historically, because we have lived in a community with expansion and growth, underneath the board, a facilities board system that has not allowed us to build those facilities in a reasonable rate to meet the need of growth. We have historically, as a community, had to put all of our resources into building schools in a timely fashion so that we didn't end up with 40 kids in a classroom, right, and 35 kids in kindergarten. I don't know if that's the right number, but it would have been a big number if we hadn't built those schools consistently and early. And there are people that will maybe disagree with that, but I think that anybody who remembers classrooms in the hallways at the intermediate school, the primary school, or in the cafeteria or in the kitchen, they had to re-renovate to pull out to make space to put a classroom in, and I think so historically that has been our primary focus and drive. And I think it's important that people know that we haven't done that just because simply we just wanted a new school. It was functional. And this is really the first opportunity in my entire time on the board and also living in Sahuarita where we have a space where we're meeting our needs of capacity, and we have an opportunity to not increase our tax burden, but also renovate and bring a lot of things that have been set aside as we've put the need of sheer classroom space ahead of maybe some of those renovations and updates and renewals. I mean, I think that's really what this bond request is. I think, did I summarize that well?
I would say that was a very concise summary.
And I think it's important to say that clearly.
Yes.
I am super grateful that we had such unprecedentedly low interest rates and could get rid of a lot of that burden. There was a lot of efforts to do that. So I'm grateful for Ms. Huey and her efforts. And so I think that's important. And I do think historically we've had a very supportive community in my time over the last nearly 10 years or so on the board now. I guess 9. Don't get ahead of myself. 9 years. We've called for a bond a couple times, and one didn't pass by about 100 votes, but every other one has passed. And I think that's because we have a community that is supportive of education and its process. And I think we've always been pretty clear. And I think we've historically, at least from my impression and viewpoint and knowledge, we have done what we said we were going to do. And I think as we go forward, I hope that, and I think your question is important. As we outline what to do with this, I think it is important to continue that history of transparency and consistency. And we said, if you renew the, district additional assistance override, we spend it on these things. We've been very kind of, and I think in all stances, not only letter, but also spirit of those statements, we have held to those commitments. So that's all. I think, and this really does set the clock, right? This puts us in a position where the district has called for the bond. And so therefore now that kind of puts us on notice. It limits kind of how we can discuss it, when we can discuss it, where we can discuss it, what resources can be used, how we manage that process. And I think this is actually, we're pretty close to the drop dead, sorry, that's a bad term, the final date where we have to tell the county.
Yes, June 23rd.
June 23rd. So it's getting pretty close. So I think it's appropriate to do it now. And I'm actually kind of excited because we've had a lot of projects on the, we fix little things here or there as we could, but I think this has an opportunity to really radically change. I don't know, I'm sorry I'm droning, but I appreciate everybody's efforts. So any other questions? Anybody questions for I do have a question, and I'm not sure exactly who to focus it to, so I'll let you ask whoever it needs to be to respond. But what are current bond rates comparatively? And we're still rated we're rated high as an entity, but what would we expect that rate to be? Just curious.
If Randy Stein is on the line. She'd probably be the person best suited. And I think it is
No-
an interesting question.
No commitment. I understand the markets move, right? I'm just getting kind of a ballpark area what that percentage rate is today.
Just Jim? Okay, well then we'll punt the ball to Jim. Jim, care to comment on that?
Members of the board, this is Jim Giel with Gus Rosenfeld. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but I'm out of town. Recognizing that I'm your attorney and not your banker, what I have seen recently is we have closed recent school financings in about the 5.5% range. You'll notice on the bond ballot attached as Exhibit A to the resolution, we say 12% as the maximum rate that the voters are approving, just because we don't obviously know how the market might move over the next 5+ years when you issue bonds. But in today's market, I think 5.5% would be a reasonable number. But of course, recognizing that you won't be issuing bonds until next year at the earliest.
Thank you for that response. And that actually gives me a good idea. And I think historically, that's still relatively reasonable. I mean, I know there's a lot of conversation about rates right now, but I think in a historical context.
Yeah, I would agree. We are maybe 100 basis points. That's 1% above our historical lows, over that we hit a couple of years ago. I mean, I've been doing this long enough where I remember when schools issued bonds in the double digits, so 10% plus interest rate, which is why, again, we have on your bond ballot 12%, because most of us remember those bad days when you were issuing it 10% plus. So, 5.5 is, relatively speaking, great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think that was the only question I had. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. So seeing no more discussion or comments, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll go ahead and move on to policy advisory second reading. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board, you may recall at the last meeting of the board, I presented a first reading of some policy advisories which had been received from the Arizona School Boards Association. They were largely related to legislation that had emerged and required update for compliance with new laws. But just so we did table that as we normally do after the first read. And at this point, this is the second read, but just to remind the board and public of the general themes, these were policies that centered around things like the rights of students who were in foster care and the need for additional support, advocacy in their best interest, rights to attend a school of origin, things like that. There were also rules about the posting of in libraries when we acquire new books. And I'd note that a lot of these things are already in full compliance and being implemented here in our organization. There's information in there about the right of parents to request information. And again, we've worked to make sure that we're in full compliance with those requests and with the requirements of appropriate response. And then the last general theme of these advisories is updates pertaining to the rules governing the distribution of medications in schools and HIPAA protections, and also the allowability of those distributions under standing orders from a physician, a medical provider, and the ability to distribute non-prescription items under the parental presentation of those things. So that's in a nutshell is a summary of these policy advisories. Again, they were done in collaboration with the Arizona School Board Association, as they usually are. And at this point, I do recommend approval of the policy advisories as presented.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, usually we approve them at the second read.
is there, yeah, did I answer your question about the,
I guess
Hmm?
and currently across the state, Narcan did our organization out to you and handed out to parents, and we life-saving item. Is that better? And so, because it is distributed that way, I'm just concerned that we're limiting the, I guess I'm not even, what are we stating if a child is caught carrying Narcan, if a student is caught with Narcan?
Right. Well, first of all, I would agree with you that it's the sad reality, but it's a sad reality that the need is there for the feasibility of that item. It has been deployed in our schools, but it's good that we have those tools. This board moved an authorizing Narcan probably a couple of years ago. So we stock them in the schools, and this policy advisory, I believe, includes provisions in line with the legislations that requires appropriate training to designated people who are authorized to have and to use it. And so under the provisions of that law, we do make it accessible.
maybe I'll add to that. I think maybe the concern is while you no longer have to have a prescription to obtain Narcan, it is still a class 3 substance, right? It's still a medication. It's not, and we tell children on campus they're not allowed to keep Tylenol in their backpack and ibuprofen in their backpack. Narcan's no different. So they're allowed to have it on campus as it's structurally controlled. While I agree with the life-saving benefits of Narcan, I also agree with the life-saving benefits of lots of other things. I think maybe that's the concern. They're still required to treat it as a medication under the statute. We're required to have it on campus, utilize, train, and provide it, but it doesn't remove it from the classification of being a medication. Does that answer your question? I mean, we don't have to agree on necessarily where that falls, but at some, I guess if we're going to have that discussion further, I think that's what I think you were digging at is.
No.
Is it not?
No.
Maybe I misunderstood it. Okay.
And
I'm just concerned about the fact that it is others. If a student shows up on Narcan or any of the forms of Narcan because they may have a family member who uses or whatever reason, what is the effect to that student if caught?
no, I think that's the question more in line with the disciplinary protocol, because I think from the medical protocol, I think what Dr. Spock was saying was more like epinephrine, the epi shots, or albuterol. We are careful because they're good, but they also are substances that are controlled. We control them in a defined space unless there's a medically legitimate reason, and then some students, because of the seriousness of their allergy, are allowed to carry it with rules. So I just want to clarify that. In terms of discipline, I'm not intimately aware of the specific status of Narcan as a controlled substance in the way that you would think about a minor in possession of, say, marijuana or those vape pens. I don't know that if it's in that category, but because it is a controlled substance, my my anticipation would be is that if it was found by somebody that didn't otherwise have an authorization to have it, that they would be confronted, and that it would be taken from them until the rationale was clarified and it was able to get back to its proper source, and that the disciplinary component would be evaluated in the context of its status as an offending substance and the intent and the
Sorry, maybe I was. But I think that's my point was the same thing, is that it still gets treated as, there are circumstances where it might be acceptable, but when you talk about different forms of Narcan, right? Like it can be nasal, it can be oral, it can be injectable with a needle. And I think there are reasonable, I hope that our administrators take that into account, right?
Absolutely.
Like a kid has a Narcan pack in his bag because he doesn't want his brother to, you know, pass away from substance abuse. I think we should be kind and open and clearly aware of the circumstances.
And I think that was exactly the wavelength of my thought as
Thank
well.
you. So I didn't want to make sure, I wasn't saying we should, I'm saying that it still gets treated as a medication, because it is.
Say I don't,
Okay.
but I'd also like various life. Thank you.
Very thoughtful dialogue. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Pressure. Tony, I want to make sure, because your microphone was thinking, you were aye or nay? 'Cause- Thank you very much. I just want to make sure I don't want to ever skip the, you know, the vote. Thank you. I appreciate it. I figured you would. We all get along. So next item on the agenda is SHS principal announcement. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. Thank you, President Sparks and members of the board. You know, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, no, I'm just kidding. A long time ago when I was a young principal in another district, there was a very wise superintendent who used to tell us as leaders, as the high school goes, so goes the district. And of course, back at a time when I had a much darker color of hair and also much less experience, I maybe didn't understand it, but I do now. I think what Dr. Phil Corco was saying was that the high school really has a unique place in the American public school system and in a unified school, certainly in a community. It is, if you think about it, it is the capstone school. It's the last 4 years of 13-year investment, of a community's investment in education. We also know that it is often one of the larger schools, or in our case, both schools. And it also is the most complex organizationally, because it just is. Programs are more complex. The number of programs, the depth, the scope of programs, the role in being kind of that last part of our K-12 continuum before we put students in post-secondary education or the workforce or going into the military. So the leadership requirements of high school principalship are complex, they're important. Also, I see tremendous reward in the high school principalship and the growth and the achievements that you get to celebrate with your students. So I say that only to preface the fact that when John Knoip came to me and we talked about the fact that he was going to resign his position as the principal at Sahuarita High School, I knew that this was going to be a top priority that would require our collective focus, attention, methodical detail, and doing whatever it takes to find the best, most professional, most highly qualified, most student-centered leader that we could for that school. And you know, the board knows that along with my colleagues Mr. Bonner and Mr. Downs and our cabinet team with Mrs. Huey, we always invest a lot in that process. But I think there was a uniqueness in this situation. And so, as we always do, a committee was assembled with great thought, formal outreach was made, careful screening was done, an interview that was very thoughtfully crafted, prepared questions, a committee that was very carefully assembled to be a representation of the diverse stakeholders of our community, including, as Brett referenced earlier, one of our students who is here from Sahuarita High School, a parent, support staff, principal leadership, district leadership, faculty, staff. We were very careful. And I'm pleased to share that process yielded by a very strong inductive consensus. A candidate that we are very excited about and that we believe will provide strong student-centered leadership for the next chapter success of Sahuarita High School. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Miss Stephanie Magnuson, who's with us here on the call. It looks like she has her children with her as well. Stephanie Magnuson comes to Sahuarita Unified School District after a 17-year career in the Vail Unified School. In that time, he's worked as a classroom teacher, a student achievement teacher, an instructional support teacher, and most recently, as an assistant principal at Cienega High School, which is the largest high school in the Vail Unified School District. Miss Magnuson has an extensive background in academic program development, raising student achievement, including the development of dual enrollment programs, which we know are also very important here, focus on personalized instruction, building a strong secondary school culture, managing data-driven, data-based instruction, and a strong emphasis on professional development. Ms. Magnuson has a Bachelor of Arts degree in education from the University of Arizona, and she earned her Master of Education degree in educational leadership from Northern Arizona University. It is with much excitement and the promise in the future of Sahuarita High School that I am proud to recommend the appointment of Stephanie Magnuson as the new principal of Sahuarita High School, effective July 1, 2023.
Thank you very much. I always look over to make sure that you're done. You always give such great backgrounds of people. And I'm listening to them like, oh, that's really good stuff. Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela. We have a recommendation, and do I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Congratulations, Steph.
Okay, very good. I think that means it's,
Can I say something after we vote?
yeah,
Okay,
after,
good.
of course.
Mhm.
No more discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Gotcha. Well, I think we should clap first.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Can you hear me?
I just wanted to say I see a pair of flip-flops and a sign behind you, and I just wanted to say with their adorable children, congratulations, and I'm glad. While we would like to have you here, I think it's fabulous that you are with your family on a getaway. We're going to work you soon enough, and we'll be able to meet you both my boys, just to talk to your boys. I have two boys, and they both graduated from Walden Grove, and they're off in college doing their thing now. So I'm really great to see them. It's really nice to see them on the screen with you, and we look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for allowing me to come in to the meeting through Zoom. I'm sorry for the noise right now. Internet's a little choppy over here in San Diego. I just wanted to take a very quick second to thank you for this incredible opportunity. I've been a part of the Sahuarita community for quite some time through our family. So it's an incredible honor to join your community and your family and also serve as your new principal of Sahuarita High School. I also wanted to thank you and let you know that I am so excited to uphold the lasting Mustang traditions and also create new ones with your support. So as you know, these are my boys, Landon and Braden, and we're so excited to be a part of your family. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any other comments? I'm excited to work with you as two of my children go to SHS, so I'm excited to have you there and see you as the leader of that team. So, well, thank you very much and congratulations. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
So, sorry, and I don't. You have a question? Okay. So thank you, and we're grateful that the student representative on your committee was here with us too today, which we're really excited about. So, and it's always fun to when new principals are hired. It doesn't happen very often, so it's a big deal. So, very cool. Thank you very much. Anything else?
Dr. Sparks?
Yes.
If I may, while Stephanie's there, I just wanted to tell you that I met with her. We had a pretty extensive interview. I interviewed her after the committee did, and we talked about everything from instructional leadership to personal management to organizational leadership. She's got great ideas. I think she's a team player. She has a wealth of experience and knowledge, and I think she has the desire to be a part of our team and to work with others to lead SHS to the next chapter. Super excited. In that conversation, though, she did mention this trip that she's on, and she was torn between being away and being here, and wanted to be here desperately, and didn't want to miss the opportunity to have this first conversation with all of you in person. I insisted that she keep her family excursion, and I stressed to her that, and thank you for validating that all of you, that this board is very family focused, family centered, that all of you are either current or former parents of Sahuarita students, and that she has the board's full support in being there with her wonderful family. And as was said, she'll have enough work to do when she gets back, and we look forward to embarking with you on the journey. Stephanie, welcome aboard. Go Mustangs.
Well said, Dr. Reynolds.
We're not going anywhere.
We're not. And I think we all would have been a little like, no.
Yeah, we're
We're
not going anywhere. Vacations are good. That's good.
Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda is the Proposition 301 performance pay, Dr. Venezuela.
Yes, Dr. Sparks, President Sparks, members of the board, as you are well aware, Proposition 301's been with us for, the better part of like 22 years. I think Bruno probably remembers it from Bruno 1.0, his first tour of the governing board. But it is a sales tax oriented investment in education, which was, I believe, a wise investment when it was originated, and it continues to be so today. I'd like to again give much appreciation to historically to our district, and specifically our finance sector, Charlotte Gates and now Lizette Huey, for their work to kind of manage the volatility of sales tax. You know how it goes up and down, and we've always worked to buffer the extremes and maintain a steady, as reliable as we can investment. And so I say thank you to them. I'd also like to say thank you to the board, because as long as I've been here, which almost goes back to Mr. Bruno's first tenure on the board, this board has historically supported the maximum investment of Prop 301 for the support of compensation in investing in teachers, which is kind of what it was conceptualized. There's different things that you could put into the Prop 301 plan, and our plan has largely been like a steady ship in the night, focused on true north. There's three basic buckets, funding buckets that it comes out of. One is embedded in the contract, the other one is by menu of choice, and the third one is what's called performance pay, which is required. but it's grounded in things that we know make sense and that are aligned with our goals and objectives. Things like increasing the graduation rate, increasing the attendance rate, raising academic growth and performance. And it's also designed in a way that's growth oriented and very attainable. I'm proud to say that although we've maintained it stable for this year, the amount that the average teacher, all teachers will be eligible to get, is about $6,850, which is an increase of $300 from prior year. And I'm also proud to say that with this investment and with Prop 301, it moves our starting salary for new teachers coming right out of school close to 50,000, right, Scott? It's getting in the upper 40s, getting close to 50,000, and this number for Prop 301 is flirting with $7,000. So we're excited about that. Again, other than that, systematically, no major changes. We feel it's a sound formula. It's well conceptualized, and I'm pleased to recommend approval of the Proposition 301 plan for the 2023-24 school year.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just want to add again, and I kind of do this every year as we go through this 301 performance pay plan, that as a former teacher who made $26,000 with her 301 money back when I started teaching, and the conversations that were going on at that time, not only in the state, but nationally for performance pay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keeping this as much as possible something that is within a teacher's control. It was scary teaching when they first brought this out and started talking about what the evaluative tools were going to be used for your performance pay. And I look at this and I feel like anybody who's coming into the profession can look at this and go, I got this. It's okay. It's really okay. And it was scary when it first came out. And so I just want to reiterate, thank you for keeping it as things the teachers actually have control over.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion?
I was just curious, Scott, did you have any comments? Scott kind of helps oversee that programming process. Scott, anything that I missed or any additional points that you think need to be made about it? Very well.
Thank you very much. Along those same lines, it's also been very clear where 301 money has been in this district. I look at across the state and, kind of along the comments of the bond earlier, and we kind of had historically really work really hard to be faithful and execute with fidelity what we say we're going to do. And I think keeping the 301 money how we've all historically ever since I've been around, and I think since before that in this district, it's a they know it's a separate number, and we do that on purpose because then there's no question where that money is. I mean, some districts will mingle that money in together, and there's very clear where it's coming from here. And I really appreciate that long-standing commitment to clear, transparent, open. This is where it is. This is where it comes from. This is what we do with it. Question. I think hopefully that makes teachers feel a little more comfortable too, because they know we're not hiding it anywhere else. Is that a fair and accurate statement?
Yeah, much so. In fact, I could add in just to respond to that through Scott in our meeting with principals when we share the student academic progress goals that teachers have to set and measure, to your point about keeping it simple, attainable, realistic, user-friendly, but purposeful. The goals are all similar to what we've done in years past, and we review it with teachers annually. And the feedback we got this year was to make only one revision, which was to kindergarten. We made one simple change to focus more on blends and segments of sounds, which is reflected on the report. So it's been vetted by our teachers, our principals, and it does all the objectives and checks all the marks to have a very realistic and attainable goal.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Any Any opposed, say nay. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda, Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, sir. President Sparks, members of the board, you have a list of items that are considered routine consent and may be considered in one motion. And at this time, I do recommend approval of the consent agenda in its entirety.
Thank you very much. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
I would just really like to thank Anonymous for their donation. It's so free. Grateful for people in our community that are willing to step up and do that. And even though it's anonymous, we can still really, really appreciate it.
I think it's worth stating that out loud. Right? It's an anonymous donor donated $20,000. Pretty sizable amount. Thank you as well for getting that out. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and establish the next meeting. Oh, sorry. Any future agenda considerations anybody would like to? Okay. We'll set the next agenda meeting, the 28th of June, here in this pod at the standard time of 6 o'clock. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here.